Let's continue our discussion of Chapter 6. Organizations are usually large secondary groups with much more complex sets of relationships and divisions of labor than are typically found in a social group. An organization has an identifiable membership that engages in concerted, collective actions to achieve a common purpose. Organizations permeate modern life, and most of them are formal organizations that use explicit rules, regulations, and procedures to achieve their goals. Today, formal organizations, like bureaucracies, are the dominant form of organizations around the world. People spend much of their lives as either members of or in contact with formal organizations because they carry out so many of the essential functions of modern society. Formal organizations provide a place to give birth, such as a hospital, to purchase groceries, to acquire knowledge, such as a school, or a place to reflect and pray, such as a church, synagogue, or mosque. Networks are another way to study relationships between people. A network is different from a social group because the people who make up a network may not share a common identity, have regular contact, or come together to achieve a particular goal. A network, however, can come out of a social group. For example, your friends who are part of a primary social group and your friends' friends who are not members of your social group are all members of your personal network. All social groups engage in practices that give them a sense of belonging. To one degree or another, all social groups engage in us versus them practices as a way of defining who belongs to the group. Some groups do this more intensively than others. For example, groups that feel threatened, maligned, or stigmatized, like white racist skinheads, may develop a stronger sense of we. In-groups are those with which we identify and feel a sense of loyalty and respect. Out-groups are them, the groups toward which we feel antagonism and contempt. For white racist skinheads, the out-group would be Jews, members of a non-white racial group, and those who do not share their beliefs. The size of the group affects the type and quality of interaction that takes place, and the group's ability to accomplish tasks. The smallest group is the dyad. A dyad is a group of just two individuals. Dyads tend to be unstable because the group dissolves if just one member of the group leaves. Dyads can also be very intense. Some primary groups are dyads, like a spousal group or a friendship. Adding a third person to the group makes it a triad. Adding even one more person to a dyad changes the nature of relations in the group. Having a third person relieves the pressure in the group, making triads more stable than dyads. But triads can also be unstable because of the possibility of two members forming a coalition, a dyad within the triad, that can lead to tension within the group. As groups become larger, they become more stable and less intense. Individuals in large groups have more options for forming relationships that serve as outlets or allow them to achieve their goals than in smaller groups, particularly dyads and triads. Now let's look at theories of organizations. It is helpful to think of organizations as groups of people in relationships with each other, working toward a common goal. How people and organizations and how they and the activities they pursue are coordinated is what defines a bureaucracy. The word bureaucracy was coined by Jean-Claude Marie Vincent de Gournay in 1745. I apologize for the terrible French. He added the word bureau, meaning both an office and a writing table, to krasi, a term derived from the Greek verb meaning to rule. We often associate bureaucracy with red tape, impersonality, a loss of power, wastefulness, inefficiency, and sometimes pain. But bureaucracies are very efficient ways of accomplishing goals in modern society. Bureaucracies were first seen in government, but they have spread to most other areas of social life. Weber saw this expansion of the bureaucratic form as an inevitable feature of modern life. Weber defined the ideal typical bureaucracy. An ideal type here does not mean what is best or the most desirable. It simply refers to a pure type or set of traits that characterize what is ideal, but does not necessarily characterize what actually exists. There are 5 characteristics in the ideal type of bureaucracy. 1. There is a hierarchy of authority in the shape of a pyramid, with a small number of high officials with a lot of power at the top and many workers with little to no power at the bottom. Each higher office controls and supervises those in the office below. 2. Rules that govern how people behave and what they do at all levels of the organization are written down. 3. People in the organization are paid to perform their jobs, which they acquire based on the skills they hold, their experience, and/or seniority. 4. People separate the work they do in the bureaucracy from the life they lead outside of it. The workplace is physically removed from home life. 5. Workers are separated from the means of production, meaning that they neither own the resources they use to accomplish their work, nor do they own the work that they produce. These features of bureaucracy are ideal. That is, we don't see all of them in their pure form in actual bureaucracies. Weber envisioned relations in the bureaucracy to be formal. In other words, relations between people, position, and units are laid down by the rules of the official system of authority. But what happens in real bureaucracies? Sociologists who study formal organizations noted that people often come up with their own way to get the job done. In other words, bureaucracies may be characterized by informal relations. Sometimes workers in an organization have found a quicker or otherwise more efficient way to accomplish a task. Sometimes they break the rules because it keeps them from having to deal with supervisors they fear, don't like, or find incompetent. Sometimes an individual or small group of people end up specializing in a task that an entire unit is supposed to accomplish, thus shifting the division of labor without any formal procedures to guide or authority figures to approve it. Authority figures frustrated with bureaucratic inertia are often aware of and tacitly condone informal relations. Informal relations are relations that exist in groups and organizations developed on the basis of personal connections, not rules or policy. In Chapter 5, we learned that social interaction has both temporal and spatial dimensions. Extend this idea to formal organizations, keeping in mind that they are made up of people interacting with each other. French sociologist Michel Foucault was interested in how the physical setting of an organization was related to its of authority and the control the organization exerted over its workers. Organizations also control their workers by keeping track of when and how much they work. A central feature of sociological thought is a critical analysis of power. So it should come as no surprise that sociologists would examine power relations in organizations. Research has found that workers with the least amount of power are likely to be the most visible in organizations because they are in the need of most surveillance. All workers are subject to surveillance, but those at the bottom are monitored the most. The organization's physical setting is designed to facilitate surveillance. A lot of the work done in organizations by people near the bottom is dull, repetitive work. Supervisors need these workers to be visible so that they can monitor whether they are attending to their duties. There are two types of surveillance. One is direct supervision, where authorities are able to visually observe workers as they carry out their jobs. The other is keeping files or record keeping. I hope this helps you understand some of the Chapter 6 concepts. Many thanks to Ms. Melton, and best of luck with your work today.